happening ever since this Russian attack on Ukraine. When it comes to the economy, we need to have a diversity of the energy. Now, when we see this type of bad dependency, hi, here is Markku Wilenius, your traveling futurist. This time, I'd like to talk about the inflation. Inflation that we have been suffering from in so many countries and with so many implications. And I want to talk about the inflation in terms of how we can get away from the type of the economy and the society that produces inflation. Now, it has been very obvious that the reason for the inflation has been the increasing energy prices, to some extent also increasing commodity prices. And why the commodity prices are increasing is also because of the energy, because a lot of the commodities are produced in a way that where there is a lot of energy used. So there is this type of a chain reaction. Now, from the futurist perspective, what we're seeing here is a systems problem. The system, so to say, sucks. It doesn't work the way it should. And why is that? The system failure comes because the energy input, when it comes from the fossil fuels, it's just too much for the whole system. You see, we have grown in our economies to be increasingly dependent on energy use. And this has happened at the same time when we have not taken care of actually shifting our energy away from the fossil fuels that have been there already for so long. So in spite of the fact that we know that how harmful the fossil fuels are, today we know this is climate change, this is the carbon that is being emitted, and it's about the pollution as well. All those things that are so much connected to this fact that 80% is still globally produced energy by fossil fuels. So now, when we see this type of bad dependency, harmful dependency, that is where the problem in the system is being created. This is why Putin has been able to use this as a weapon, because this huge dependency produces vulnerability that we have been living. I mean, if you think about the total cost of using the fossil fuel, it's not just what we immediately have to pay. It's all the costs that are incurring because we need to be cleaning our air, our cities, because we need to be doing something with the damage that increasing global warming produces, and so forth and so forth. So the actual price is a huge. And now on the top of that comes this political game. I mean, OPEC countries, those large producing countries that are responsible for so much of the global oil and the gas productions, those countries have been controlling, by and large, the world economic system by installing some price for the oil and for the gas. What has happened as a result of that type of politics is that the price itself is very artificial. It doesn't reflect the real price. And that is why Putin can leverage this type of the artificial price of oil that has been produced as a result of the decades of increasing dependency on oil. Now, maybe this is just the beginning of that type of the era where we can see how badly this oil dependency, oil and gas dependency, is actually inflicting our societies, making our societies more vulnerable, making our economies and indeed the inflation to go up and then down and then again up and then down. But all in all, from the system's perspective, that has now become a real problem, and we need to be able to do something about the problem. Now look at some of the countries like Turkey, for instance, that is using huge amount of energy, very little energy produced in their own country, mostly brought from outside. And look at what type of the situation they have. Their inflation is huge. It's close to 100% this year. And even the countries with the minor problems in terms of inflation, 10 to 20%, they also are suffering heavily. But all this comes from the fact that so much of this energy input comes from fossil fuels, comes from outside. For any type of a strategy to tackle this problem, we first need to think of how to increase our independence from fossil fuels and to increase our national local production of energy. Because only by doing these two things we can think, and in the future we become more resilient on this type of the inflation that we have seen now happening ever since this Russian attack on Ukraine. From this perspective, this is a great lesson to learn, and we really should learn out of this lesson, because if we don't, the situation in the future can grow only worse. Of course, it is a challenge. It's not easy to make this shift. But on the other hand, all the other options are even much worse. And that is because I come back to this, how the really healthy economy works. It works when there is sufficient amount of the flows and feedback loops inside the system that are healthy. That is like a healthy ecosystem where we need to have sufficient diversity. When it comes to the economy, we need to have a diversity of the energy sources. We need to have a diversity of the companies and entrepreneurs and so forth and so forth. So we need to have this diversity inside the system to have the rich flow that supports the system and regenerates. But the current system in so many countries is a very different one. It is not the one that has any type of the sustainability. Because even if countries look that they are healthy, they are actually healthy for wrong reasons. They might be healthy because they have already gained a huge amount of money because they are producing and exporting fossil fuel products. In which case, they probably have diminished a lot of their diversity in terms of the economy. And this is typically what has happened with Russia. This is typically what has happened with the other many erosion countries that are producing oil. This is also what is happening here in the Middle East, where I am now, and so forth and so forth. So we always see this detrimental effect if there is a one aspect, one feature of the economy that dominates too much over the others. So in the healthy economy, we have a diversification and rich sources of money and wealth creation and creating job opportunities and also resources to take care of the system, to take care that that our environment is not damaged, that we are not using our natural resources in a detrimental manner, that we are really regenerating. And of course, that is something that is supposed to be the goal of our economy. Our economy should be based on solidarity and collaboration of all kinds, interaction inside the system, because only that ensures the real quality and viability of the system itself. This was how I see the current inflation crisis, and this is how I see how to resolve that. Subscribe to my channel, see other related videos, and learn more about the future.